Yo, what's up? Tank Lit. You here with the dude. We doing a part 5 of the blog. It's a review for the movie Top 5. I either gotta get a camera that just fucking shoots longer videos and shit, or got more memory and shit, because shit's just dragging on. I gotta make it like fucking 5-part blog and shit just to get out what I want to say. But back to the notes. So on the end of part 4, like we already discussed, the situation with Rosario Dawson, how she plugged the dude's asshole and shit with a fucking lubed up tampon that was lubed with hot sauce. She got her revenge. And I was segueing into fucking, Chris Rock and Rosario Dawson, they going through the hood, through all their walking and shit, and like leads them up to, what I'm about to tell you right now. So, Chris Rock, they doing a lot of walking. Him and Rosario Dawson, they come into the hood. That's where their travels lead them. And, some homie shouts out, you's all Hollywood, but you came back and shit. He's talking to the dude, talks this and that, on some bullshit. Fucking Chris Rock, hands him a stack of cash and they walk away. Chris Rock, like, shaking his head like, he's just irked and annoyed at the situation. Rosario Dawson asks Chris Rock, like, how do you know that cat? And Chris Rock says, that's my dad. And, like, I want to touch on this, again, forgive me for, being that white man talking on some hood shit or some black man aspects and perspectives. But again, I'm from Queens, I know about some hood shit. And, I'm not blonde, just because of the color of my skin. Like, I know how the world operates. So, forgive that if you don't like the interpreter here or where the message is coming from, but the message is still valid. How sometimes, like, how true that is. And I think that's what, Top 5 is trying to illustrate, is like a message about the experience of fucking how it could be coming from the hood. Like, you passing through, and like a homie on the street is not just one of the homies. Like, it could actually be your dad that never grew up. Like, that dad is now 40s, 50s, 60 years old. And he's still drinking a 40 on the street, shooting dice, bullshitting, shooting the shit with the homies. And on the surface, it looks like you just dapping one of the homies. And that's how it actually is sometimes. Like, your dad wasn't really a dad for you. It's a different experience than a suburban, experience. Like, your dad is he's your homie, he's your friend on the street, but he might not have really been there for you growing up. Like, he was out on the street, but he wasn't really taking care of you because he never grew up himself. And how Top 5, like, beautifully and in a way, forgive me for this, but accurately depicts that aspect and experience for some people. And, you're like the dad. Like, if somehow the hood didn't destroy you and you fucking broke out and did something successful, like, you come back to the hood, like, you're now like the father to your dad. Like, he's giving his dad a stack of cash, like helping him out. But like, where was his dad when he was growing up and needed like a little push and a little help? But just like the ironies and some of the fucked up aspects of that experience. So, like, props to Top 5 and Chris Rock for like exposing it, putting it out there, making you think. Like, you put your thinking cap on. It wasn't even necessarily funny, but it was just like some true shit that might make you chuckle, like, oh shit, did they really just show that? But it's like, well, maybe you are just oblivious. Maybe you just saw it as a scene in the movie and weren't even thinking about that. So you need a Tank Lit to fucking point out, like, the bigger picture and the higher message of those scenes. That's why I'm bringing you these blogs. I got my thinking cap on. I get Quill. I discover the in-between lines and the, the undertones of this shit. And it's not, I understand it has like racist undertones, but it just is what it is. Then finally, speaking of like racist undertones, like the last anecdote from this movie I want to share, like Chris Rock's, the whole thing is he's out doing press interviews to like, promote his new movie where he's like some Haitian refugee or some shit, and he's like slaying and killing like all these white people in the jungle and shit. And he's in one interview and they're giving him shit. Chris Rock is explaining how they're giving him shit for fake killing white people in a movie. Like, it's just pretend. It's just a movie where he's fake killing. And this is dope. He points out, like, they're giving him shit for fake killing white people, but he says George Bush is real killing in real life 50,000 black people, some shit. It's very racist. I don't know that it's necessarily funny. I feel like George Bush catches a mean rap from people and cats, especially cats from the hood, be just, on some like underground shit, like the underground rap music, underground battles, just the underground scene, like the whole culture. It seems like George Bush is the enemy. Like, let's ease up on George Bush like a little bit. He was a president for like the free, maybe democracy and freedom is a fucking walking contradiction. But our country here in the United States of America is about as free as the world could get. You know what I'm saying? For all practical purposes. And he was a president for our free land, and yet we be talking about George Bush like he was like a Hitler. Like, basically he catch such a mean rap, like, the world see him like as a Hitler, doing some genocide shit. Maybe he is. Maybe George Bush really needs to get fucking snuffed in the face or some shit. I don't know. But I just feel like we need to ease up on George a little bit. Both Georges, Like, they got a lot of enemies out there from the way I'm hearing it from the streets. People don't like George Bush. But, anyway, so this is like a racist kind of like, anytime, first of all, we even mention white or black, it doesn't even matter what we say, it just comes out racist. Like, even the fact that I felt compelled each time I was giving you my perspective, and me being a white man, that I felt compelled to somehow, like I needed to apologize to you for not being black in reporting these anecdotes, just shows that the vibe of racism is very real. It's not that I'm necessarily a racist, it's just how real the undertones of racism really are, that I feel that negative energy and feel compelled. Like, and it's the flip. It's not the white person necessarily hating on a black people because I love blacks. You know what I'm saying? It's actually that I already instinctively feel y'all's energy as black people hating on a white man doing a review or blog about a predominantly black movie, and I felt compelled to apologize. So y'all, like, not that this is the main point to get out of my 5-part blogs about top 5. This was not like an assault at racism and let's tackle racism. Like, at the end of the day, I'm really just trying to give you a review of what I thought was a dope movie. It's not just about racist shit. But, there's an agenda here. There's an agenda in top 5 to expose racism, and I'm not oblivious to those aspects. And, like, I also just forget about top 5. Like, my understandings of the world, like, racism is very much alive. But just understand, it's not just whites against blacks. Like, there's a reciprocal of that because of any past history of whites having racism towards blacks. There's equally these days just as much racism from blacks towards whites. And what about the poor Chinese?